Hello and welcome to my channel, Bevvy with Beth. I'm Beth, and here on this channel I talk all about polycystic ovarian syndrome, the symptoms, how to cope with them, and how my personal journey with PCOS is going. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below to catch my videos every single week. And today we're going to be talking about my 5 first steps for you to start managing your PCOS symptoms. So today I am actually drinking, should have brought the box, but it's a pucker tea. And this was actually one of my little Christmas presents from my friend who lives locally to me. I look after her dog occasionally, you may have seen on Instagram. And it's basically a hug in a mug. Chamomile, vanilla and manuka honey. But there's also quite a bit of licorice in there. I'm surprised licorice hasn't been put in the title because there's definitely a strong element of licorice in there. So it's really great for the digestion. It's incredibly calming and just a delicious tea. So that's what I'm drinking. Go grab yourself a drink and I'm going to run through my top 5 tips for managing your PCOS. So before we start, of course, a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. So although these are the things that I have done, that I have found the most effective, that doesn't actually guarantee that it would be a success for you. But if you haven't tried anything yet, or if you've tried a few things and what I suggest you haven't tried yet, then I definitely recommend giving it a shot and seeing if for you this could also be helpful. So this is just my general advice based on my own personal experience of dealing with my PCOS symptoms. And if you'd like to give them a try, then I'd love to know how you get on with them. Or if it's something you've already tried, then again, leave me a comment down below and let me know how it worked for you or didn't work, or what you found worked best for you. I'd love to get some conversations going about how we can each individually manage our own PCOS symptoms. But with that being said, let's get on to tip number 1. Adding fats. This makes it so much easier to reduce a lot of the other things that you're eating because of the benefits of eating fat. And the main thing is that fat, especially for women in our diet, is essential for our hormones. And so if we have PCOS and then we have a fat-free diet, that's not going to work, is it? So I have no doubt that especially if you have insulin resistance, or even if you're just trying to be a healthy person, everybody knows that you cut out fat, right? You go fat-free, you get the fat-free yogurts, you do the reduced fat butter, all of that kind of stuff. And actually, anyway, that's not a good idea for female hormone health. But if you have PCOS, that's even more so. So the chances are you're probably on a low-fat diet, and we definitely need to reverse that before doing anything else. Just adding in some simple fats like your avocados, some coconut oil here and there, using some butter, because it's also really great that butter tends to be very low in lactose because of the process of making butter. As much sugar as you would with some other fake oils, and it's also really low in omega-6 as opposed to a lot of oil-based spreads. And of course, making sure that we include those healthy omega-3 fatty acids from things like salmon, flaxseed, you know the drill, all of those kind of things as well. And adding these into our diet will not only obviously help our hormone production and regulation systems work better because they actually have what they need to work, but also it really aids in satiety, which means instead of having to have 1,000 handfuls of lettuce to make yourself feel full, you can have half an avocado and your body's getting what it needs and you feel satiated, and that in itself actually helps then to also regulate our hunger hormones. Tip number 2, although really this kind of should happen at the same time as tip number 1, if you see what I mean, these go hand in hand, and that is to start taking supplements to support your body. Now, of course, the best way to do that would be to go and get a blood panel done and find out exactly what it is that you are deficient in. But there are 3 main supplements that pretty much everyone is low on anyway, because again, our diet isn't the best, but also is kind of essential to us with PCOS, and that is magnesium, potassium, and zinc. These 3 supplements work, as I said, alongside having more fat in your diet to help us to regulate our hormones. The main ones really being the kind of negative hormones, so the stress hormones, the cortisol. And it really aids us in getting things like good sleep by helping things like our kidney and liver function, and also helping things like our hair and nail growth, and also the absorption of other vital minerals such as iron and calcium. So when we top up on those things, even if we don't do it, doesn't mean you have to do it forever, but certainly until we get our diet completely in line and we're making sure that we're getting those vitamins from the food that we're eating, then by supplementing, you'll notice that everything else becomes a bit easier because you're sleeping better, you're feeling healthier, you'll have more energy. And that will mean you can then go on to do things like making the best food choices, increasing your exercise, getting good sleep, and it all kind of comes together. Tip number 3. This again needs to be done at the same time as the other 2, which I know might sound a bit overwhelming, but as I mentioned before, with adding fat in, helping us to reduce our or manage our appetite, then it becomes a lot easier as we add more fat in to then reduce the amount of sugar that we're eating. And the first thing that we have to do, especially if you have insulin resistance, which I do, which is why I focus so much on this, is getting that insulin resistance under control has to happen. Otherwise, you'll never really get your PCOS under control. So for me, that means going full keto, but just initially, you just want to cut out the refined sugars, all of those unnecessary sugars that are in your diet. You just need to get rid of them. Just start looking at what sugar has been put into your food and whether that's really necessary or not. Start finding alternatives, healthier options, cooking things at home, all of those kind of things to really cut out those refined sugars, as well as, of course, not eating cake, biscuits, sweets, chocolate to an excess every single day, because I know that that's what's happening, because that's what our body is telling us to do. So I'm not shaming you for eating those foods, because that's literally what our body thinks it needs, and it's just really confused. It has no idea what's going on. It's really messed up, and we just need to take a step back and say, no, I am in charge. This is what we're eating now, and you will enjoy it. And there is always that kind of transitional period, and you'll probably find that you won't be able to go, all in straight away. But a gradual reduction, start doing some research on what is in your food, find those unnecessary sugars, add in some fats to help you feel satiated, reduce those sugars down over a period of time, and eventually you will start to notice, particularly your energy levels will really start to shift. Tip number 4. So once we've kind of got to that point and we've introduced the fat, and we've got lots of different recipes that we can enjoy, and we enjoy having those extra fats in our diet, and we've reduced the sugar right down so we're not kind of binging out on a packet of biscuits every night, then we want to move on to the next tip, which is to try and make at least one of your meals a day completely carb free. Well, I say completely carb free, I mean as low carb as possible. And the reason is, again, if we have insulin resistance, there really isn't any way of bringing back our insulin sensitivity if we don't drastically reduce the amount of insulin that's already in our system. And yes, by reducing those refined sugars will definitely help. And once you've taken those steps, you'll see how true that is and how much better you feel. So the best way to really get your insulin levels low is to keep your carb intake low throughout the day by making my breakfast a low carb or carb free meal. That if I started without sugar, I could then go throughout the day longer and longer without any sugar. If I had some, potatoes or pasta for dinner, then it didn't really affect me so much. I could still get some sleep, wake up in the morning and ready to start my day carb free again. So that again is my recommendation. That's definitely what worked best for me. But obviously if you found that a different meal, say your dinner, you found that if you had a carb free dinner, that meant you slept much better, then totally do that. If you found that actually the middle of your day, if you don't have a sugar spike in the middle of the day, then you're not getting that real low when it comes to like that 3 or 4 o'clock slump. But to pick one meal in the day to have that kind of carb-free, nourishing meal is definitely the way to help us to keep our insulin levels really low and helps our body move towards a more insulin sensitive place. Tip number 5. So whilst we're trying to get into the habit of having that carb-free meal a day, another really great thing to focus on when we're trying to balance our insulin levels is actually to have a macro-balanced snack. And so the macronutrients are your fat, your protein, and your carbs. And so if we're going to have a snack, and particularly if the snack contains carbs, but even if it doesn't, if we're going to have some chocolate or some fruit, then to pair that with one of the other, or preferably both if we can, macronutrients, this really helps our body to A, feel satiated, B, only release the insulin that we actually need, and also not have a big spike in insulin and blood sugar levels, but instead to release a nice, even, steady amount of energy for our body to use. I can't take credit for that piece of advice because I myself received that from the dietitian online here on YouTube, Abby Sharp. Her channel will be linked down below. I highly recommend checking out some of her videos, and she talks a lot about balancing snacks and having that hunger crushing combo, as she says. And so in the posts that I made on Instagram, breaking down these points over the course of a few weeks, I've got a couple of examples of good snacks, or more snacks that of how to combine two things that would normally be a snack, put them together to make a perfectly balanced snack. And the first one is chocolate and peanut butter. Now this is a bit of addiction of mine. At the end of the day, if I'm going to have some chocolate, I've got to have it with some peanut butter because it blows my mind. Now I'm a smooth peanut butter eater. So if you were going to have some peanut butter, what kind of peanut butter would you have? Let me know in the comments down below. We might have to start a peanut butter debate. And of course, we all want to keep up with our fruit intake. And so I tend to stick now just to berries, but you could do it with apples, oranges, melons, whatever you want to do, little fruit salad even, and then popping some natural Greek yogurt with it. And what that means is you've got the protein and the fat from the Greek yogurt, and you've got the sugar and the fiber from the fruit. And again, this makes a perfect combination, leaving you satisfied. And then the last one I've got is some chicken and mayo. So I tended to use this a lot to kind of bulk up salads and things if I was going to have that for lunch. And again, it's having the protein from the chicken and the fat from the mayonnaise, and putting those two together makes it a perfect snack. So those are my 5 top tips that you want to get on, start doing, do it now. I did make a post all about this and individual things on Instagram, so if you're not following me there yet, don't forget to go and check that out. Again, I am linked in the description box down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Or just having the mayo. Who would eat just mayo?